allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh? Here. Mr. Kress?
Here.
Mrs. Kim Parsons? Here. Dr. Engelmann? Here. Mr. King?
Here. Two, superintendent's report. Okay, so I think this has been well publicized in our area, also in central Ohio. Basically, it's something that affects schools nationwide, also in Canada. But you may have heard about the Power School nationwide data breach that occurred. And typically, Power School is saying that it only affected directory information, so things like student name, date of birth, address, phone number. Again, information that school districts everywhere would classify as directory information. In some situations where this information had historically been stored, there is more personally identified information that may have been compromised. And Power School has been very good about giving us material and literature that we could use for mailed letters, text messages, the body of email messages to keep parents and families informed. But it often is the case once students graduate, the last contacts that we have are no longer accurate. So we are going with the information that we have for folks in our best attempt to try to get the information out. We've also put something on our website, and because of some of the other schools in the area that have been affected, it has been well publicized, and so there are stories about, I think Kettering was in the news for the same issue, Tip City. I think the superintendent of Troy made some comments regarding their use of Power School, which is a little bit different than ours, because we use it as our student information system, and some other schools just use different products that Power School provides, but not necessarily use it to organize all the individual student data. Mr. Neely, what am I leaving out?
Nothing. We have a very small number of currently active students who may have had some personally identifiable information in there. Those students would have probably unenrolled some time ago, and then while we were still collecting some of that information, and then were inactive, and we stopped collecting, got rid of that information, and then they re-enrolled later, so that information is still in their outdated records. When we brought those records back, 9 students out of our currently active students. Several past students that were inactivated when they graduated or moved away had, over a few years ago when we were still collecting some of that, would have had some data breached. We sent out emails to all those students, although, like I say, not all those emails went anywhere, outdated information in the database. Some of those students graduated in 2009, 10, 11, 12, they're up to a few years ago. And we had some staff that had used to use Social Security number and some staff accounts that have been deactivated. Those are still there, and so a small portion of staff were impacted as well. So high school has Friday released some information about they're going to be sending out contacts to everyone, offering some cybersecurity protection for those who were affected.
Are they putting that the duty on us to notify those affected?
Actually, they not necessarily. One of the things that said in the letter, if you do not want us to notify your staff and students, let us know this week.
I think probably, I just learned this today. I actually think over-communicating this is best. So we've done our best to try to reach out with those folks that we feel are affected both current staff, former staff, current and former students, but I think more is actually more in this situation. So if Power School is going to try to do that as well, I think that's best. Also, that will give those affected communication directly about any kind of credit monitoring that they would want to take advantage of moving forward for some period of time. That is something that Power Schools offered. One thing to note, this is not, our servers that have been hacked. Power School, who works with our IT, Meta, and we work with Meta as the provider of Power School, but think of Power School as the overarching umbrella. So that overarching vendor, it was their data breach. So they have a lot of schools and a lot of ITs to communicate this kind of information to.
Yes, so none of our accounts were compromised. They didn't get into our server through any of our accounts. It was a support account that Power School used to access servers and provide support to all the servers. Some servers are hosted by Power School in the cloud. Some are hosted by Meta and other ITCs in the state and around it. And some districts actually have their own server in the building. When we first started Power School, we had our own server in the building. And when Meta started offering hosting services, we didn't have to have a server anymore and keep Windows updated and installed and running and all the updates from Power School installed ourselves. We moved to let Meta host that. But all three of those scenarios, all the servers were accessed and impacted. Wouldn't matter there anyway. There was an access through Power School, not through any individual district information.
So it is Power School's liability. It's their responsibility to follow up. This is, although it does affect our students and staff, this is not an issue that Milton-Union created. Again, it is Power School's responsibility to communicate this and offer resources to families and students moving forward and make it right.
So if past students want to check to see if their data was hacked or stolen, how can they do that? Who should they reach out to?
We set up incident response team at newschools.com.
Incident, okay, and that's on the school's website?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the letter.
So it's in our news feed, and in the body of the story, there's an email address that they can, we check frequently, and if they have questions about their individual data, that'd be the place to put it.
9 current students, we certainly sent those currently active parents emails. Past students, I received a few of those emails from my past students and forwarded those on to the kids. It does say in their letter Friday that they're getting ready to offer cybersecurity protection plan. Cybersecurity protection agencies do not offer cybersecurity protection to anyone under the age of 18. So when they turn 18, you can sign them up as a parent. And many of those past, obviously, students who graduated years ago are so they would know.
Other questions about that? Okay, so I think I probably have passed this out to the board before. It's pretty easily found on the Department of Education and Workforce website as well. There's been a lot of discussion about student cell phones in Ohio. It's an issue that the government, the governor himself has been very interested and concerned about the use of student cell phones. I just want to bring your attention to this model policy, and specifically Roman numeral 3. Use of cell phones, students are prohibited from using cell phones at all times. So that is not our current policy. It could be our current policy, and I would imagine that Neola is going to provide us with some recommendations for what to approve as a school district. But we do have to have something in place, which we have something in place now, but this is going to get a lot of attention over the course of the next several weeks and months until I think there's a July date where school districts who don't have something in policy have to ultimately have something in policy. just food for thought for the board and how we want to go on this. And certainly if we limit cell phones completely, that would be something that our community and parents and families would have some pretty strong opinions about, for sure. However, most of our issues, 612, and I don't know if Katie might have some thoughts about this as the former middle school principal, but a lot of our disruptions and student-to-student issues that occur with students in grades 6 through 12 start and are perpetuated by cell phones. So I think that our administrators, and I would bring some principals here to talk about this and give you some real data as far as student behaviors and incidents that maybe have a cell phone at the crux of it. But they would tell you that most of their issues come from social media, which our kids are accessing on their cell phones throughout the school. Comments that kids make to other kids, sometimes threatening remarks, sometimes images and videos that are maybe they were taken or created outside of school, but students sometimes watch those things during school, and then it's about a student, and maybe it's very unflattering, then ultimately that results in some student-to-student issues. So a lot of our student management issues are the result or begin with cell phones. So I give this to the board as just something to think about moving forward. If that's something that we want to do. And currently our students are allowed to use their cell phones or have their cell phones, check their phones in the hallway and at lunch and other kind of unsupervised times. But classroom, not so much. And certainly if there's an issue with it, students are required to give that to the administrator or staff member who's asking.
Is it state mandated that we have to come up with something?
Something different than what we have?
No, we're good. We're good on our policy. We don't have to come up with something different. It's hard to believe that there might be school districts out there in the state who don't have a cell phone policy. I believe that if we're not fully compliant, I'm sure that working with Neola, we will be fully compliant. But I think one of the options that we would have as a school district and as a board is to modify current policy to make it more restrictive about the use of cell phones during school.
I guess from my perspective, I'd like to hear from principals. I mean, they're in the trenches and what they think is the best option for either limiting or eliminating cell phones.
Yeah, as you might suspect, we've had some discussion about this, and it's not, if it is an issue in elementary, it doesn't really take off until grades 4 and 5, but it isn't really an issue in the elementary. Where it's an issue, it starts in middle school and really takes off from there. But yes, that is absolutely something that we can do, organized to provide the board with information and thoughts, and maybe some anecdotes about how this sometimes goes.
I'd be interested in the schools that have completely prohibited it. How is that going? Are they really able to enforce it well or not?
I don't know my wife's school, she teaches that you can't have it out, period.
Is that like twin classes too? Do you do?
So. Yeah.
Is there any reason for the kid or child to have a cell phone on them during class, even though it's not being pulled out? I guess I don't understand why we need so much access to cell phones in 6th grade.
Now this isn't every student, but of course there are students who are monitoring some of their own health data using a cell phone, which would totally be fine. I think that, to be fair, there's probably parents and families who want to be able to get in touch with their students whenever they might like. If there was an incident in school they probably would like to be communicated with, depending upon the issue at school, there are circumstances where we would not want the parents communicated with. So if it's a huge threat or safety concern, letting parents and families with information would do nothing but bring them to the facility, to the grounds, which is probably not the best course of action for them, but I certainly would understand why parents and families would want to do that. That's if you're asking about an instructional reason, maybe there could be some students or a student or two with special needs that might need to have access to the cell phone, but our kids are walking around with some of the same tech equipment you have. So it's not like they would be without technology throughout the day because there's this provided device that you can email from, that you can send messages to teams. So it's not as if they're isolated at school. It's just we're able to control that more. So the chatter that occurs on social media and the disruption that comes out of that, you can't use our device for. I can't think of much reason. So too many words in providing an answer. Let's go full circle. I can't think of much reason why a student need access to cell phone in a classroom.
I was just trying to think of the other side of the argument.
There probably is one, and to be fair, we should probably investigate both sides.
I think the other side, if there is an emergency that can reach someone, and my understanding, most policies, they have on them, they can't have happen. So if there is something, obviously we want to track from having, like you said, making calls and that emergency, and make much people show up. But like I said, hear from the principals, people in the trenches, what their thoughts are, what their perspectives are on potential change and the policies that we have regarding cell phone usage. See where it goes from there.
Yeah, lots of discussion between, but we're just doing a second reading of some policies now that were first, provided to us in the fall. So we've got plenty of time to do this and think it through. And again, you're going to get there'll be a pretty dramatic difference between the elementary versus the middle and high school. I mean, it's not really an issue in the elementary. And in the middle and high school, it's a big issue.
And many of the kids in the elementary have cell phones already. I know that they are, but I don't know the percentages.
I don't even know. I can definitely find that out. I'll work with the principals and try to get something off the ground so that they can provide you with some information and some thoughts at our February meeting.
I know my sixth grade niece is one of the minority in not having a cell phone this year.
We all know if a kid has a cell phone and they're told not to pull it out during the day, they're for sure going to pull it out.
That's what I was curious, like how bad is the discipline issue when you tell them that, like is the teacher all day long going to be managing cell phone warnings or not?
Different schools of thought on that, on whether or not to implement disciplinary consequences for first violation, second violation, third violation of having a cell phone out. I think eventually it becomes the inconvenience to parents and families to have to come pick it up. So that students become more responsible in use of the tech. I can tell you that in my heart, my feeling about this is we always should want kids to be responsible users of technology. Whether it's a cell phone or AI, we want to teach them how to use those tools responsibly to be successful. But I can tell you, not sound overly negative here, we're losing that battle right now.
Speaking of AI, I've heard through my kids that they know of others using AI tests, which I assume you can't do on our devices.
That one I don't know the answer to, Nick.
State tests, certainly those are accessed through an environment where you cannot have anything else running on the device. That means if they have a cell phone over here, they have on it, it's another device not controlled by the district. District devices, state test environments. To get into the state testing environment, you go through a program or a login where if Google is running, or if Teams is running, or if a calculator is running, it won't let you in. It says that has to be stopped before you can get in.
Other questions?
That's state tests. Every day. Some teachers read a version on paper to it today.
I run mine through peer assessment, and I can set it up in ways, for example, that I'm immediately flagged if a student goes to another website or reduces the size of the window. And so I can be alerted to that. But it's still a lot of monitoring when you've got 30 children and you want to help a student that needs help, and you want to get them back on track, and then
So food for thought. We'll talk again. Again, I'll try to get the three principles in front of you for February meeting. And on the same note, I will invite Chris Fulton and I have already talked about him being here for our February meeting. Talk a little bit about, by then the winter season should be either winding down or over. So he can give you kind of the review of the winter sports season and outlook for the spring. I think there'll be some other things as we get to it in the agenda that there might be questions or a few things that I can add. So that's, unless there are other questions from the board, that's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Moving on, 3, hearing of the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak? Tom, Mary, Nick? All right, then we will not read it. Treasurer's report, approval of the Board of Education minutes, December 16, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. B, approval of Board of Education minutes, January 6, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve the board minutes, January 6, 2025, organizational meeting?
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hazelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Abstain.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. C, approval of December financial report, recommend approval of the December financial report. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Anybody presenting?
I will. So for the December report, you'll see in my notes on the, not the next page, but the page after. So what happens with the December report is you switch over to using the November financial information, where you also know what your expenses, your actual expenses and revenues from July through December. So although this does show that like we're remaining within budget, I do want to point out a few things that we have going on here. So up at the top, I just explained, kind of what I just said, that you're using actual figures from July through December. I'm sorry, because the books have already closed. So I sent out an email, I believe it was last week, on some information that I kind of heard coming out of Columbus, and just what some of the, one of the senators was, I believe it was a senator, was quoted saying that, what the current funding model is not sustainable. There'll be cuts in the school funding. So once more information comes out about that, I will update you guys. It's kind of a long read, so just in summary that it's not looking promising for the public school budgets over the 5-year forecast, especially pertaining to fiscal years 26 and 27. But we'll see what actually comes of it, and I'll provide you with a more specific update. The expenditures, the main line I want to point out here, and we talked about it at the last meeting, was the update that we got from the Miami County ESC and the increase that we've had to experience with that. We've had to adjust the number of educational aids that were needed. There was a wage increase given to them as well. Milton-Union's hourly wage schedule per se was a little behind compared to everybody else in the ESC. Does like to keep those comparable so that staff members are flipping back and forth from district to district. So there was a need for that, and also retaining aides in general. The district also needed a little bit more from those aides, so to accommodate the one bell schedule and especially helping down elementary with the arrivals and dismissal. There were a few other preschool items that were added to it, and we can go into more detail with that if we need to help make those classrooms function appropriately. So we'll have a little bit more. Like I said, this is looking, it looks like we're running on budget, but as we explained, with the approval of the ESC contract, there is going to be an increase on that natural services line.
Just to clarify, ESC stands for Educational Service Center. We purchase services that we may not need a full-time person for, or we contract at a lower rate than what it would cost to employ a person full-time.
So, per the usual, the cash summary report, again, the negatives that are on there, there's PCRs in place for those expenses. Not much to say about the investment report. We haven't had, we do have some maturities that have happened here in January. So, as you can see with the graph down here, Star Ohio and then the CDs and bonds that we have at multi-bank, starting to kind of level out, and Star not exceeding so much as what we've seen over the last year and a half. Cafeteria account fared pretty well this time. I was looking back at the history, and in December of previous years there was an increase in influx in revenue. So I should have looked the next couple of months, but the point of that is the revenues did exceed the expenses, which is good. And then, of course, all of the disbursements that occurred in the month of December.
Are more kids eating the meals at lunch, or?
I don't know. I don't know if there's like a push that goes out from food service saying, "Hey, low accounts." That is a good question. I'm not sure what the influx is around this time. But historically, there has been.
Curtis would know that, and I can run that information down.
I just curious.
I can tell you this, that the head cook has made, I haven't seen it, I was told about it today, has created some kind of questionnaire for the 3 buildings to go out through the principals so that students can talk about what they like, what they'd like to see more of, there's things they'd like to try. That's almost the extent of my knowledge about that right now. But I think I think those are good questions to ask, and I think that that'll empower our students. And if kids want that and they'll pay for it, I think that we'll do more of it.
Has the menu changed much since past years? I know probably accessibility to food has been better since, because I know for a while there was difficulty obtaining certain foods because just the inability get it. They're not available. Has the menus changed at all? Do you know?
I think they're pretty consistent. So far this school year, our kids have favorites. I mean, it's pizza and chicken. I mean, they might say that they want to try something, but at the end of the day, they're getting pizza and chicken. So if it's an item that kids will consistently buy, it'll end up on the menu. So.
Anybody have any other questions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mrs. Rob?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Parsons? Yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes. 5 other special reports, A, MUEA.
Later on, I'll be looking at the calendar for next school year. So other than that, nothing right now.
6, agenda confirmation, A, additions and deletions to agenda. Any additions and deletions? No. All right. B, approval of the agenda, recommend approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Rumble?
Yes.
Mrs. Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes. 7, old business. Do we have any old business?
No, sir.
8, new business, A, appropriations amendment, recommend approval of the attached appropriation modifications as well as increases/decreases in total appropriations as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mrs. Rumble?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. B, OSBA annual membership dues. Recommend approval to continue membership in the Ohio School Board Association for 2025. Dues $6,254. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Just for, so we can let people know what all of the OSBA membership do for the school district board. And then,
Carrie, you might want to chime in on this, but I mean, it's strength in numbers first, and then we are able to call them and ask questions regarding board procedure, which is helpful. Sometimes, I mean, there are questions that wouldn't necessarily have to go to board council, and the OSBA can help with those procedural questions about meetings.
There are a couple of vendor contracts that we have that we do get a little bit of a discount because we are members of OSBA. Minimal, but there are a couple.
I mean, you folks have access to resources through the OSBA that I believe that you're sent directly as board members.
Updated information regarding legislation, you name it.
The majority of, I think that there was a time when some school districts were deciding whether or not they wanted to remain OSBA members. Most of the school districts in the county in our area are OSBA members. I just think it's nice that the board has a professional organization, that and often I was going to say that the OSBA would lobby for things that are in the best interest of local school districts and boards of education, but they'll often work with BASA and OASBO, the Treasurer's Organization, Superintendent's Organization, on things where there is mutual interest. Of course, Capital Conference. When we've had board vacancies, they've been very useful in terms of advising us through that process.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons? Yes. Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. C, Weibel contract, recommend approval for a 3-year service agreement with Weibel Energy as presented for calendar years 2025 through 2027. Love a motion.
So moved. Second.
I just want to just go through some numbers and so people understand the reason why, what Weibel does to benefit the school. The average cost, energy cost is $1.06 for school districts across Ohio. We're operating 54 cents per square foot, which is almost half of what the average school district is operating at. A lot of that has to do with the programming of the school. There's a lot of computers that run the HVAC system and the lighting and about every aspect of the school. And all that's programmed at their headquarters in Vandalia, Ohio. I've been fortunate enough to visit it at one point. And not only do they monitor the weather, they monitor everything. So there's great value in their services to the district. So just want to touch a little bit on what they do for us, so the general public understands what Weibel does. Anybody would like to add anything else?
They graciously did not give us an increase for the first 2 years of this contract, so.
Which is
They realized, the financial instability of the district right now, and they were gracious enough to not increase it.
all right. Roll call, please.
I have one.
Go ahead.
When did we first start using this program?
Ever since the building was built,
Like a year after?
they were involved with a lot of the.
Because the reason I asked is because when did we move in here?
2012, I believe.
Because our rate per foot has dropped. It looks to me from January 2013 from 96 to 54. I was just wondering, is that when it was implemented?
You're asking me from the very beginning?
Yeah, so on this chart that we were sent from Weibel, it shows January 2013, our usage cost per foot at 96, which was still below the state average.
That's the state? I guess that's us.
It's us.
Well, I know we've done some energy improvements. The lighting was all switched out to LED, which dropped our costs significantly. That seems like a drastic drop from 2013, especially considering the increases in energy costs. But
If I recall, Weibel was involved in the initial installation and construction of all that equipment. Started us out. It took, I believe, a year or two to learn the system, how everything works, getting everything tuned in and tweaked up, and they're constantly, every year, looking at results from the previous year, trying to tweak it down. And we started out much better than we'd ever been, much better than average. Everything's gone down since, and LED lighting is just another example of big drops that we've experienced along the way.
Well, I just think it just shows the value.
yeah, sure.
Because at some point in this new facility, we were over $1 per foot, and we're now at 50 cents, roughly, 50 So, which is well over 100,000 a year in savings.
Not only do they do preventative maintenance, they identify equipment that's about to fail through their computer system, so they are.
Everything is monitored
Everything's
24/7.
monitored, so.
The facility is very nice and how it's set up.
Well, and when they communicate to us cost per square foot and, communicate where we are in terms of other districts, I mean, that's just from the folks that they're working with. And if they're not working with them, they're just the folks that they would get information from about a district from, say, their Energy Star. So, I mean, we're doing really well because at least they're showing us how we are competing against probably some of the most efficient school districts and school buildings in the state. So
We could be Energy Star if we paid the money.
that's right.
It's not pay the money.
We have been Energy Star.
We have.
And we were lead gold.
Yeah. Something to be proud of.
And our costs have gone down since then, so.
For sure. All right. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
That's it.
D, proceed with submission of an annual or additional income tax levy. Recommend approval of the following resolution proposing the levy of an annual tax for school district purposes on the earned income of individuals and proceeding with submission of said levy. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Guessing I don't have to read the whole.
You have
Are
it
you-
passed.
No, okay, I guess I will.
Go ahead. Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if you did.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. I'm going to read it off paper because the computer cuts part of it all.
Should be on page 6.
Whereas the Board of Education at its meeting on the 6th day of January 2025 by resolution duly adopted determined the necessity of raising an additional $1,804,644 per year for school district purposes as defined in section 55748.01I of the Ohio Revised Code, and further provided that application be made to the tax commissioner of the Ohio Department of Taxation to estimate the property tax rate that would have to be imposed by a school district in the current year to produce said additional annual amount and to estimate the income tax rate that would have had to have been in effect for the current year as a school district income tax to produce said additional annual amount, and whereas the tax commissioner of the Ohio Department of Taxation has certified to this Board of Education that the estimated property tax rate that would have to be imposed by the school district in the current year to produce said additional annual amount is 6.77 mils, and that estimated income tax rate that would have had to have been in effect for the current year as a school district income tax to produce said additional annual amount is 0.75%, 0.75%. Now therefore be resolved by
The Board of Education of the Milton-Union Exempted Village District, Section 1, that pursuant to Section 5748.02 of the Ohio Revised Code as amended, a levy of an annual tax for the purpose of current expenses on the taxable income of individuals as defined in Division E1B of Section 5748.01 of the Ohio Revised Code is hereby proposed, and it is hereby determined to proceed with the submission to the electors of the school district the question of levying for 5 years an annual income tax of 0.75%, 0.75% per annum on the school district income of individuals for the purpose of current expenses at the election to be held on May 6, 2025. Said tax, if approved by the electors, shall be effective January 1st, 2026. Section 2, that the treasurer of this Board of Education be and is hereby directed to immediately certify the following to the Board of Elections: A, this resolution, and B, the estimated property tax rate that would have to be imposed in the current year to produce said additional annual amount, and the estimated income tax rate that would have had to have been in effect for the current year as a school district income tax to produce said additional annual amount, as calculated and certified by the tax commissioner of the Ohio Department of Taxation, and to notify said Board of Elections to cause notice of such election to be given as required by law. Section 3, that the form of ballot upon which the question of levying said additional tax shall be submitted to the electors shall be substantially as follows, subject to modifications provided by the Ohio Secretary of State and/or the applicable Board of Elections. Proposed tax levy, Milton-Union exempted village school district. A majority affirmative vote is necessary for passage. Shall an annual income tax of 0.75% on the earned income of individuals residing in the school district be imposed by Milton-Union exempted village school district for 5 years beginning January 1st, 2026 for the purpose of current expenses. And then there's a box that has space for the levy and space for against the levy. Section 4, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this Board of Education concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of the Board of Education, and that all deliberations of the Board of Education and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. So we have a motion and a second, so we're at roll call.
Dr. Finkelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brownbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. All right, Section 8, consent calendar. Recommend approval of all matters listed under the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brownbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Finkelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. 9, other authorizations for resolutions, etc. A, special education model policies and procedures. Recommend adoption of the Ohio Department of Education workforce special education model policies and procedures. Now there be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Milton-Union Board of Education as well.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Do I need to read all that?
I think it was just an extra word.
Yeah, okay. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby adopts the special education model policies and procedures that were released by the Ohio Department of Education workforce in December 2024, and directs all staff members in the district to use and comply with the model policies. The board further authorizes the superintendent to notify the Department of Education workforce of the board's adoption of the model policies through the state's monitoring system by uploading a copy of this board resolution on or before March 30th, 2025, and by November 30th for each subsequent school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So is this new?
They did a revision in December. Well, the revision was done in December, and it's been recommended by Neola that this is the action that we take. It was also recommended by Alyssa Kocher, our special education director. And if we did not adopt the state model policy, then we would need to use the state model policy to create our own. So it pretty much outlines procedural safeguards, forms that need to be used. So.
Is it significantly different from what we've been doing?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't want to guess one way or the other. If it's any comfort at all, you're going to see a lot of school districts taking the same sort of action in the next few weeks.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. The memorandum of understanding, recommend approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Milton-Union Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, Local 172, guaranteeing a minimum of and setting the conditions for 5 hours pay to all regular district bus drivers. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is being done to align with other districts in the area to provide desired compensation to attract and retain bus drivers.
Yes. As the board is aware, with the driver shortage right now, we do have drivers that have been willing to and volunteer to take extra routes. So they're already working, some are already working more than 3.5 hours, which has been pretty much the standard since the beginning of the school year, that 3.5 hour mark. But with additional work, so it could be helping with administrative tasks, it could be running a bus for repairs. It could be taking an additional route. It could be washing, cleaning buses. But for additional work, up through 5 hours, we'll compensate the employee for what he or she works. But it could be up to 5 hours. And yes, it is supposed to help us be more competitive with other schools. School districts that are offering 5-hour minimums or 6-hour minimums to try to maintain a fleet of drivers. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
I don't know who's listening out there, but we could always use bus drivers. So call the board office. We could always use bus drivers.
The Program of Studies 2025-2026, recommend adoption of the high school program of studies for usage throughout the Milton-Union Incentive Village School System effective with the 2025-2026 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
I had a question.
Sure.
I was interested in piano.
Yes. So I'd asked Mr. Watson is well trained. So he outlined for us the changes to the program of studies. So yeah.
Will it be like a whole classroom of kids learning piano? Or like,
Well, we really don't have the luxury of staff to. So if we have enough kids who will take it,
I
then
imagine
we'll
it
run the
won't
class.
be 30 kids, but
We did offer guitar. At one point, it's been several years, but we offered guitar. It was self-taught. So, yeah.
presented today.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimble?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Gim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
D, district calendar, 2025-2026 district calendar. Recommend approval of the 2025-2026 school district calendar. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Mrs. Gim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimble?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. E, project evident. Recommend acceptance of a grant award for a representative team to attend project evident workshop for district and county leaders and authorize superintendent to select participating team members. No cost is associated for selected and attending districts and their representatives, and will be completely paid through the grant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Want to elaborate on the grant?
So, our partnership with the ESC, they knew, the staff over there, Dave Larson, Jay Borchers, the curriculum director, they knew that we thought pretty highly of a project evident convening that occurred in Columbus in the summer. So, how that happened, I believe that the Department of Education and Workforce had some extra grant money available to them, and they were looking for something that might be really useful to school districts, and so they brought in a team from Project Evident to work with some interested schools throughout the state. It was all voluntary. So we decided to go. Katie and I went, and essentially, this is just generally speaking that their mission, or what they do, is to help school districts, use their data to continually improve. And that's their operational efficiency, financial efficiency, policy, programmatic decisions, how to conduct data analysis and interpret and communicate those data findings, strategically think about budgeting and resources, and help facilitate continuous improvement. A simple way to look at this is, and it's much more involved, but I'm going to completely simplify it. So one kind of anecdote they told was working with a school district on their calendar for a school year. And if there are times in the school year where you're kind of trying to swim upstream against, what an attendance rate might be on that given date, then maybe you want to adjust your school calendar for future school years. So if we did late arrival or early dismissals, and we saw a high absentee rate on those days, then we're learning that maybe families are keeping their kids home, and it's the headache of having to arrange transportation at kind of this awkward time in the day that's out of the norm. Again, simple example, hey, maybe you don't do late arrival and early dismissals, and that helps your attendance rate as a school district. Is it those days before holidays? Do you extend vacation time? Do you, an extra day on holiday recesses or breaks because you're kind of swimming upstream on attendance? That makes sense. But we were drawn to it because of how lean we've been running as a district, and thought, we should probably take advantage of anybody's expertise on how to run as lean as we possibly can. So that's why Mrs. Hartley and I went in the summer. We came back and talked to the staff at the ESC and tried to find a way to maybe organize something here. As you might suspect, this type of consulting is extremely expensive. Even if we brought along some Miami County partners, it was still going to be pretty expensive at a time the district probably shouldn't spend those dollars on that kind of consulting. So Jay Borchers, again, the curriculum director, came across this email from Project Evident where they were going to host this convening in Austin, Texas. They were going to make the opportunity available to districts nationwide, and they were only going to take a certain number of districts, and we applied. We thought it would be, a nice opportunity. Really didn't expect to get it. We do not have a contract with Project Evident. I think that's important to note. And again, this is no cost to the district. Individuals that would be going are going to be reimbursed directly for the expenses. And fun fact, although I would really like to go, and hopefully it'll still work out, but I also got called to jury duty in February. So I'm waiting to hear how that goes before I would start booking any travel arrangements. So I might just have to give up my spot and learn from the team that goes once they return. So
How many people are you thinking for the team?
right now we are able to send 5, and Jay through the ESC is one of those folks that's going. I've asked Mark Lane, Nick Neely, and Annie Blankenship, elementary principal. So I think Mark has a historical perspective on the district that is really useful. He's right at the crux of all kinds of student issues. We have a very large elementary building, so I think there's an opportunity, because we run so lean, for maybe some efficiencies to investigate in the elementary. Nick has access to all the data, so I think he's got to be there if we're looking for historic attendance rates. Unfortunately, the rest of us will just look at each other and call Nick anyway and ask him to build a report and send it to us, or our EMIS coordinator build a report and send it to us. So I think it's important for him to have a seat at the table too.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brumble?
Yes.
Dr. Kinkelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. F, Help the Kids Program, recommend approval for the superintendent to enter into agreement with the Healthy Kids Program to operate before and after school and summer camp programming beginning as early as June 2025. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Elaborate on this as well.
I'll do my best. So we recognize that there is a need for before and after school care. And there's not enough of it, and I don't think that, the preschool in town, I think they're busting at the seams, and I don't think we're going to have any problem marketing this to parents and families. In fact, the partnership with Healthy Kids, it's not the same as Head Start, but not having ever partnered with them before, going into it, it feels a lot like Head Start. Like we would provide the facility, we provide Head Start with access to meals, but through the Council on Rural Services, I mean, they are really kind of self-sufficient, and I believe that Healthy Kids is going to operate the same way. We're pretty active in other states. They are just breaking into Ohio. I know that there is a school or two in Northern Ohio who might be interested in programming for next year. I just think that with the setup that we have of our with our schedule of everybody starting at 8, everybody ending at 3, it feels like there are times still when our parents and families want to drop off their students earlier because mom and dad, family members, they got to get to work. So we hear that for several years, even when when Dan Basin was here as our operations manager, we were pretty sure that this was going to meet a need then. We couldn't figure out how to do it and support it financially. This is going to be all handled through Healthy Kids. Catch here is it is going to be parent-family transport. So if, not that we couldn't, but if we would decide to provide transportation, that would be at the district's expense, because that's not something that Healthy Kids does. But I would imagine that there'll be a need for that too. So I'm interested in where this journey leads. I've been pretty impressed with them so far, and they would like to begin with some summer programming. Remember a couple, 2 or 3 summers ago, we offered some enrichment programs in the summer. They have some similar sounding opportunities that I think parents, family, community members would really appreciate. So I believe Healthy Kids would like to start that in the summer with those camps, and kind of get their name out there and communicate the opportunity for the fall. They tell me that they will operate a program. They just have 3 or 4 kids, they'll operate a program. I think it's going to be wildly popular.
So we're bringing this program to our school during the summer, and the district doesn't have to pay anything.
That is correct. I mean, utilities, space, we move things around for Head Start now. I mean, there's things that we do, but again, they're very self-sufficient. Healthy Kids has done this in other places, so we would be following that model. And yes, yeah, they handle it. They're charging people.
Right, yes.
And I think what they try to do
It's
is...
still not very much money.
Yeah, well, you know,
Really.
those are drafts. That's a draft that you folks are looking at. But what they do try to do is see, you know, what's the going rate? You know, what's the going rate in the area for child care workers? So, and they make sure that they understand all the rules of the state of Ohio or whatever state that they're operating in. And it's their job to know them and follow them. So they are going to do some research to know, you know, what their employees, to be competitive in the area, what they would have to make hourly, and what folks are kind of willing to pay.
You don't have to do any recruiting for them. They handle all of their staffing. They tend to dip into those who are potentially working for the district already. So we don't have to worry about any of that. I got a really good feeling about it. It made me warm and fuzzy.
Well, we've talked to them multiple times. So, I mean, we first contacted them in the fall and had a Zoom conversation. And then, you know, hey, we're getting pretty serious about this, so we should probably talk after the beginning of the calendar year. And it all starts with, hey, we want the Board of Education to know we're operating in the district, what the opportunity is for kids and families. Yes, they would start with our staff to see if they would be interested in helping. But beyond that, maybe they would recruit folks to do it.
Have you thought about what spaces they would use? I'm just thinking if it was successful and there's like 50 kids and it's winter time, our indoor space is pretty in demand.
Right. Yeah. So that would be an issue. But that's I think that's a problem that we'll have to solve, because again, I think it's meeting a need of our community. But right off the cuff, I would say cafeteria. Probably morning and afternoon. It's currently, and you might have to correct me, currently the only thing that's happening in the cafeteria in the morning is breakfast. So we could drop the curtain, and breakfast can happen on one side of the curtain, and then Healthy Kids can happen on the other. There is demand for the cafeteria after school, but yep.
Well, they could potentially use this space.
Yes, or maybe a combination thereof. It would be kind of nice to put them in the gymnasium, but don't think with practices that's going to be possible. But we feel pretty confident that we can work that out. Another reason to have another space, too. You know, it's cart before the horse, but if this works out, I mean, and they're in the district for a while, again, it's another reason to have additional space. do this kind of thing.
I said like sheet age 12. Do you think if a kid started the year as 12 and turned 13, they'd be like a John, or do they get to finish the school year?
I don't know. That's a pretty good question to ask. I'll find that out. Happy birthday. We'll see you later.
You're good, go.
So if some of our people that already work here were to work for them, that would be, they'd be separately also employed by them.
Yes.
Yes, we would not run that through payroll.
I think it'd be great to have this available.
Absolutely. Provides more options to parents.
It also has a 30-day notice, so if somebody wants to terminate the agreement, there is an out in there.
I think it's nice that you could pick just morning or just afternoon, and then they even have like just that day. Like they had something random.
I did notice the 30-day agreement, but what if you're in it for, 2 years, and then you decide it's not working out? Then what happens?
I would think the same thing. So, a lot of agreements that we have like that, and you might want to stop me if I get this wrong, but, you've got that 30-day period that if one of the parties of the agreement, says they want to get out of it, then no problem. Otherwise, it would just kind of automatically renew. So it is one of those things we'd have to keep track of. But I would think it would work the same way in year 2 as it does year 1. So if we feel pretty good about it in year 1 and we go ahead and continue in year 2 and something goes off the rails, then I would think that we'd have the same out as we would just start now.
Did they feel pretty confident they could start next fall?
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
Yeah, they did. They said they were going to have to hustle. And they would feel better about the fall if they could offer some things in the summer to help get the word out. But they said once board approval happens, we have a lot to do, but they would do it.
I said it gets interesting with the licensure that the state of Ohio requires to run something like this. So they already had their hands wet with it, or their feet wet with it, and they were kind of waiting on those other districts, but they'll move. They'll move.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mrs. Brimwell?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Gibb Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes.
G, policy update, second reading, recommend adoption of the following listed DOE policies for use throughout the Milton-Union exempted school district. I do have to read these.
Yes.
All right, just the bylaw and the title?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Bylaw 0100, definitions, bylaw 0142.1, bylaw 0151, organizational meeting, bylaw 0152, officers, bylaw 0155, committees, bylaw 0163, presiding officer, bylaw 0164, notice of meetings, bylaw 0165, board meetings, bylaw 165.1, regular meetings, bylaw 0165.2, special meetings, bylaw 0166, agendas, bylaw 0167.2, executive session, bylaw 0167.7, use of personal communication devices, bylaw 0173, board officers, bylaw 1130, conflict of interest, bylaw 2265, protections of individuals, individual beliefs, affiliations, ideals, or principles of political movements and ideology, bylaw 3113, conflict of interest, bylaw 3213, student supervision and welfare, policy 4113, conflict of interest, policy 4120.08, employment of personnel for co-curricular, extracurricular activities, policy 4121, criminal history record check, policy 5131, student transfers, policy 5200, attendance, policy 57, 80, student/parent rights. Policy 6110, grant funds. Policy 6111, internal controls. Policy 6112, cash management grants. Policy 6114, cost principles, spending federal funds. Policy 6220, budget preparation. Policy 6320, purchasing and bidding. Policy 6325, procurement, federal grants, funds. Policy 6550, travel payment and reimbursement, relocation costs. Policy 7310, disposition of surplus property. Policy 7450, property inventory. Policy 7530.01, cellular telephone allowance. Policy 7530.02, staff use of personal communication devices. Policy 7540.03, student technology, acceptable use and safety. Policy 7540.04, staff technology, acceptable use and safety. Policy 7540.09, artificial intelligence. Policy 8310, public records. Policy 9160, public attendance at school address. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Engelmann?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbault?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Yes. Ten board reports. A, legislative and student achievement.
I think we already touched on in the financial report. What I think is really relevant to higher legislation was the kind of brought up that the third phase of the fair school funding might not happen. So we'll have to watch that very closely.
When do we know what the funding will be for this year? Any changes?
I don't know. I just know they questioned the third phase.
Yes, so it's not so much
Is that
for
26?
fiscal year 25, it's what's going to be in question for fiscal year 26 and 27. And my source has said that at the end of this month, so at the end of this month and then time to dissect it all. I'm hoping to have something for the February meeting, if not sooner.
Are they planning on changing with that Patterson?
It has been quoted that it is not sustainable by some legislators.
Wonderful. B, policy update, myself and Lori. They just read a lot of policies. And the second week. C, building and transportation, myself and Justin. I don't have anything to do with anything. D, MVCCC, Jamal Wall.
No, I just, the board's interested, attach the December minutes.
E, Milton-Union Education Foundation, yes.
We took off last month, so we did not meet, but we're meeting this Thursday, and we have the Bulldog Bash on March 15th. So next month, I'll let you guys know exactly what will be happening. On that day, we'll be flipping pancakes, sausage, orange juice, bananas, and lots of fun
It's a good time.
carnival activities. It is a lot of fun.
It was March what?
March 15th. And we have the the Bulldog Golf Classic right around the corner, June 6th. And
Biggest fundraiser for
the biggest fundraiser.
foundation.
Yep. And that raises money for classroom grants. And also scholarships for the seniors as well.
I don't know how closely you looked at the minutes from the organizational meetings since you weren't here.
You're doing it.
I did notice that I got volunteered for that, and I did cartwheels. Very happy.
It's a fun position, it's just a lot of time.
It's good work.
Thank you for doing it.
We have a good committee.
All right. F, audit, finance representative Justin and Rory, do you have anything? Okay. G, facility complex committee, that would be me, it's not really a committee, but I don't have anything for this meeting. Moving on, 11, information and discussion items. A, general information updates. None. B, board member insurance announcement. Board members Jessica Bruneball, Lorian Parsons, and Justin Kress announced their intention to enroll in the Milton-Union Schools dental plan effective January 1st, 2025, as allowed under the Milton-Union Board Bylaws 147 and ORC 3313.12 and ORC 3313.202, subsection E. Enrollment is at the board member's expense. 12, board announcement meetings, regular Board of Education meeting, February 18th, 2025, 6 p.m. in the Media Center. Everybody good with that date? 13, executive session. Recommend approval to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, demotion, or compensation of a public employee and ORC 121.22 G5 consider confidential matters as required by federal law, regulations, or state statutes. There will be no action taken after the board exits executive session. Invitees will be Brad, Carrie, Katie, and Katie. Anybody else? We will enter into executive session at 7:23 p.m. Do I have a motion? Second.
Justin, say something.
Yeah. Roll call.
Dr. Niemann?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons? Yes. Mrs. Diaz?
Yes.